Hey guys, this is Eliza from Dusk Reads and welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be wrapping up the Newt's edition of Magical ReadAthon.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side.
So if you didn't know, Magical ReadAthon went from, well, the entirety of August, and obviously it's past August now, so I can finally wrap up. I was going to do a midway point wrap up, so I didn't have to talk about everything at one video, but that didn't end up happening because by the time I got around doing it, it was already well past midway. So let's just get into what I read during Magical ReadAthon. Okay, so I just wanted to do an overview of everything. I completed an outstanding in 6 subjects, so that means I read 3 books for each subject. So I got my goal. I wanted to finish all 6 subjects with outstanding, and I did. So I'm really happy with how much I got done. So the first subject we'll talk about is arithmancy. So the acceptable challenge for arithmancy was a book of at least 300 pages. And for this one I read A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This one has, let me have a look, 386 pages. So it has at least 300 pages. I read this one, I loved it, 5 stars I'm pretty sure. There's a lot of tabs in here, so that was satisfying. I don't know what that noise was I made though. Moving on. The Exceeds Expectations challenge for arithmancy is a book that ends on an even number, and for this one I just used Goodreads and just seen how many pages there is in that book. Don't actually have a copy of this one, but I read Waking Gods by Sylvain Neuvel. This one I listened to on audiobook and I really love this series, so much. It is amazing. Highly recommend, especially the audiobooks because they are very well narrated, and these books are written similar to the Illuminae files, which you can't see, where it's like a dossier of documents. So if you have any issues getting into the book, try the audiobook. It's really well done and it's got a full cast narration. So the outstanding challenge for arithmancy is a book that is not the first in a series. So this one I went with Queens of Fennbirn by Kendall Blake because this is 0.5 in a series. It's not number 1, it's not first. It's before first, so it counts. And I just did a recent reads that discussed this one. Really enjoyed it. I didn't love the first story as much as I did the second. Overall, 4 stars. It was a decent book, but yeah, highly think that the second half is better. The second story is definitely better than the first one. So the next subject we'll talk about is Care of Magical Creatures. The acceptable challenge for Care of Magical Creatures is a book with an animal on the cover, and for this one I read Wildborn by Brandon Mull. This is the first book in the Spirit Animals series, I'm pretty sure it's called, and this is a series that has all different authors. Each book is authored by a different person. I don't remember all of them, but I know Marie Lou in there? Maggie Stevart is in there. Garth Nix I think is in there. But yeah, I read the first one on audiobook, really enjoyed it. It was just a fun, interesting middle grade, really interesting world, and overall really enjoyed it. Keen to continue the series. The Exceeds Expectations challenge for Care of Magical Creatures is a book under 160 pages. There's one challenge that's under 200 and there's one challenge that's under 160, and I keep forgetting which one's which. But for this one I read the second book in this bind up, which is Sparks Rise. So yes, I read Sparks Rise. At the time I didn't own this bind up edition, but they are each individual stories and I read them on ebook. Spark Rise is number 2 and it comes between the Darkest Minds and Never Fade? Or Never Fade in the next one. No, I think it comes between Never Fade and In the Afterlight. Having a mind blank. Yes, it does. Yeah, so this one was really fun, really interesting, very short read, and I really enjoyed it. I love diving back into this world and I can't wait to pick up The Darkest Legacy, which I still haven't gotten to yet. The outstanding challenge for Care of Magical Creatures is a book that involves a dragon in any way, and for this one I read Dragon Rider by Cornelia Funk. This one I wasn't overly impressed with. It was fine, but it didn't wow me in any way. It was an interesting world, but yeah, couldn't connect. I didn't really connect with the characters and it was just okay. Don't remember what I rated it though. The next subject is Charms, and the acceptable challenge for Charms is a book with magic in it. So for this one I read The King of Attolia by Megan Wallen Turner. This is the 3rd book in the Queen's Thief series. Queen's Thief. Yes, so I read King of Attolia. It's a magical world. Moving on. The Exceeds Expectations challenge for Charms is a book that charmed you, so something that you like the cover of. And for this one I read A Snicker of Magic by Natalie Lloyd. This one has an ice cream on the cover. I literally only saved it on Scribe because I liked the cover. I had no idea what it is, but it's like a middle grade. It was fun. It was fine. It has ice cream on the cover. The outstanding challenge for charms is a book that you think will leave a mark. And for this one I read Codename Verity by Elizabeth Wine. I thought this would leave a mark. Honestly, didn't enjoy it that much. I just didn't connect with the characters and I wasn't overly impressed with it. But usually I do connect really well with historical fiction, so that's why I chose it. But it just didn't quite live up to expectations. So now moving on to divination, the acceptable challenge is a book set in the future, and for this one I read Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This is set in 2044. Yes, it is. It's set in 2044, so set in the future. And I really love this book. This was a reread for me. Highly recommend. I also really like the audiobook. It is narrated by Will Wheaton and he does like a perfect narration for this book, and he also does Armada, which is Ernest Cline's other book. So highly recommend the audiobooks. Highly recommend the book. Highly recommend the movie as long as you don't judge them against each other because they're nothing alike. But the movie by itself is quite good. So the Exceeds Expectations challenge for divination is a book under 200 pages, and for this one I read, trying to find where it is, Beyond the Night by Alexandra Bracken. This one is 3.5. It comes after In the Afterlight and before Darkest Legacy. I really enjoyed this one. It was really fun to see all the characters come back together. Sparks Rise follows a very side character and what happens to her outside of the events of the other books, whereas this one happens afterwards and we get to come back and meet some of the characters and they all get together at the end. Really enjoyed it. It was so much fun. I love this series. So the outstanding challenge for divination is read a book with mythology. And for this one I read The Serpent Shadow by Rick Riordan. This is the third book in the Kane Chronicles. So as you know, most of Rick Riordan's books, actually I think all of Rick Riordan's books are based on mythology. So it definitely counts. This one is based on Egyptian mythology, which I think I enjoyed more than the Percy Jackson book. I've only read the first one, The Lightning Thief. Didn't love it that much. I really enjoyed this one. It was fun and I really enjoyed the audiobook. It was really well done. It had a cast narration as it does follow 2 points of view. So we had a separate narrator for the young girl and the young boy. So really enjoyed the audiobook. So now moving on to potions. The acceptable challenge for potions is a book with a name of a colour in the title. And for this one I chose The Red Pyramid by Rick Riordan, which is the first book in the Kane Chronicles. It has red in the title. I've already explained the series kind of overall when I talked about Serpent Shadow. And next, the Exceeds Expectations challenge for, what are we up to? Potions is a male lead character, and for this one I chose the next book in the Kane Chronicles, which is The Throne of Fire. And at the time when I wrote this list I didn't realise that this was a multiple point of view. I only realised when I first started reading the first book, and even though it does have a male lead character, it's also multiple point of view. So it does also have a female main character, but it still counts because it's got a male lead character. That is the tongue twister. So the outstanding challenge for potions is a book over 350 pages, and for this one I went with The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one I listened to on audiobook and I do really enjoy the audiobook. Again, cast narration for this one, and I think the voices were perfect, especially the voice of Evelyn Hugo. Her storytelling ability is really good, and I think I rated this 4 or 4.5 stars. I'm not 100% sure. I did enjoy it. It drags you in straight away, you get emotional, you love the characters, you know, that type of stuff. But it's still not something that I would directly recommend to someone who enjoys the same books as I do. So that's why I didn't give it 5 stars. But it was still enjoyable, I enjoyed it, I liked the audiobook. Moving on. So now moving on to the last subject, and that is Transfiguration. So the acceptable challenge for Transfiguration is a book with a grey cover, and for this one I read Sabriel by Garth Nix. Now I didn't love Sabriel and I ended up starting Lyriel, which is the second book, and DNFing it, but I did read Sabriel, so it counts with a grey cover. But yeah, didn't love it. A lot of slow-paced world building, not much action. Okay, the Exceeds Expectation challenge for Transfiguration is read a book by an author you have never read anything from before. And for this one I read The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. This is another fun middle grade. I didn't love it as much as I have other middle grades, but it was quite interesting. The world was very interesting. The characters were very interesting. There isn't a lot of action, but there's a lot going on. It's not very fast-paced action, but there's always something interesting going on. and just like read the synopsis of this book, it sounds like very intriguing. And the last book for the Outstanding Challenge for Transfiguration, read a book that has kingdoms or royals in it. For this one I chose The Queen of Attolia by Megan Waller-Turner. Queen, royals, you get the idea. And like I said, for The King of Attolia, which is the third book in the Queen's Thief series, the second book is Queens of Attolia, and while I don't love these books, they're okay. A lot of slow-paced political intrigue, that type of thing. It's just not 100% my cup of tea. I'm more of a fast-paced high fantasy situation, not like a high fantasy political slow-paced situation. But it was okay. So yeah, that's all the books that I read for Magical ReadAthon. If you've read any of these books, let me know what you thought of them. And if you participated in Magical ReadAthon, let me know what you read or what your favourite book that you read for Magical ReadAthon was. So yeah, that's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.
We'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays.